Hey everyone, my name is Eric Masalski, and in this tutorial we're going to take some photos and prep them so that they can be used as reference plates in your 3D package of choice. This tutorial assumes that you're familiar with the basics of Photoshop, so we're not going to be going over specifically what layers are and various operations. I'll try to go slow enough so that you can follow along if you're new to Photoshop, but hopefully I won't lose those who have used Photoshop extensively. Okay, so if you open up Photoshop as well as the two images that came with the tutorial. Now, first should be said that these two images were provided by 3D.sk. It's a really great online resource that has hundreds of, maybe thousands of different subjects or reference photos of people, animals, clothing, whatever. Really great online resource. I highly recommend you check it out. Now let's just take a look at what our full resolution is here. What we're seeing right here is actually a quarter of the resolution you get with the 3D.sk. So just keep that in mind. Again, can't speak highly enough of it. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing that we need to do is we need to remove any distortion that was introduced by the lens, the camera, or the photographer. So often, actually almost always, lenses will put a certain type of distortion into your image, often called barrel distortion. So that's one thing you have to watch out for. What we'd like is a perfectly flat, representation of this guy's face. Unfortunately, that's going to be very hard to come by. So we're just going to try to get it as close as we can to our ideal representation. So to do this, we're going to actually end up using a new feature in Photoshop CS2 called lens distortion. Now let me just open up a grid really quick just to show you what the lens distortion does. So if you go up to Filter, Distort, Lens Correction, I'm going to turn off our grid, and what this does is there's many different tools here that prove to be very useful in this. The first is the Remove Distortion slider. This is very similar to the Sphere Eyes filter of older versions of Photoshop. Now, in addition to removing the distortion there, we can also adjust for perspective if the camera wasn't directly in line with the subject, horizontal, or even rotate it an arbitrary amount. I'm going to try to scale this back up. There is also a really helpful tool right over here that's a straightening tool. And the way that it works is you click and drag between two areas that you know to be perfectly horizontal. When you release the left mouse button, it straightens it out so that that line that you drew becomes horizontal. Very useful feature for kind of pseudo-automatically lining up or straightening out your characters. So let's go and do this to one of our photos. So let's select our front, go back up to Filter, Distort, and go to Lens Correction. Alright, so we can keep the grid on in this case if we want. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure this guy is straight. Now, before we go ahead and just start using the straighten tool or adjusting the angle, we want to make sure that the differences that we're seeing between various features on his face is not due to natural asymmetry in his face. A lot of people have different sized ears, crooked smiles, or slanted eyes. So we just want to make sure that this guy is actually fairly symmetrical before we make any more assumptions. So let's first take a look. Okay, the pupils, the right one's higher. Nostrils, kind of hard to say. The mouth, the corners of the mouth, the right one is higher. The earlobes, the right one is higher. So in this case, we can basically assume that he has his head tilted slightly to the right. So we're going to click on our straighten tool. I'm going to use the bottom of the earlobes as my guide. So there we go. He's now straight across, and actually I'm going to redo this from the center of the pupils. Yeah, that's better. Okay, because looking at the mouth, that's a little bit more representative. So it looks like he has two different length earlobes. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to remove the distortion. So if we go up to our distortion and start sliding it back until we kind of remove that fisheye effect. And just kind of like flatten it out a little bit. Then also, it looks like the camera was slightly off center, so we're going to just tilt the plane a little bit. Once we're all set, we're going to click OK. There we go. We have that all set. Now let's go ahead and do the same for the left. Instead of you watching me go through the process, I encourage you to do it on your own, and we're just going to jump right ahead. Okay, here we go. So I basically have this guy's side profile adjusted. Now what we're going to do is we're going to merge these two into a single image and make sure that the key features line up. This will become pretty evident once we start getting into the modeling process. But basically speaking, we're just lining them up so that when we're moving points around in 3D space, we have 2 points of reference and 2 accurate points of reference. So if we move something in the front, it looks correct also in the left or in the side. So we're going to select our entire layer, Control A, Control C, jump over into our front view, Control V to paste. We're going to move it off to the side. We're now going to go up to Image, Canvas Size, and extend the canvas 200% to the right, just to give us a little bit of room to work with here. Okay, so now at this point what we're going to do is we're going to take our layer 1 and set its opacity to roughly about 60 or 70%. We want to see through it, but we still want to see the face behind it. And let's pick a common point that we can use for lining up. I often use like the side of the mouth or the side of the eye for this purpose. Now you can see that the lips don't quite match up, the tip of the nose is a little bit higher, and the eyes don't quite match up. So we're going to press Control T to enter free transform mode, or you can also get to it through the edit menu. And we are going to rotate it slightly. But to make our job a little bit easier, we're going to take the center here and move it towards our reference point, which is the side of the mouth. And that way we can line up one, and hopefully line up the others at the same time. Okay. So there we go. Not too bad. Alright. So it's a little bit far over, so we'll just drag this a little bit to the side. There we go. Okay, so the eyes are lining up, the nose is lining up, and so on. So we're just going to hit enter to confirm. And we're going to drag this back to its sides so they don't overlap, and set our opacity back to 100%. Now I'm just going to use the erase tool really quick just to clean some of this up, this extra background. Okay, just so we can clearly see both images. Okay, now at this point what we're going to do is we're going to double check our results by using a few guidelines. Now you can turn on your rulers by going up to View, Rulers, and then just click and drag from the top ruler down to, say, the center of the pupils. Okay, then we're also going to do one underneath the nose. Going to do one through the mouth. And if you want, you can do one underneath the ears, or the top of the ears, or top of the eyebrows. And so I'm going to do that. And you can see that we're lined up actually pretty darn good. So this will make it pretty easy for us to model from this shape. Yep, I mean just about all the features line up. So this is wonderful. This is what you want. So what we're going to do at this point is we're just going to clean this up a little bit so it's a little bit more concise. So we're going to use our crop tool. Just click and drag over the area that we want to keep. Here we go, and hit enter to finalize. Okay, so that'll basically do it for this tutorial. We're going to save this as a JPEG image, and we're going to use it in our next step where we're actually going to start defining the topology of our surface. Now one little side note is when we were using the lens distortion, if you have complete control over the photo shoot and you know the camera, the lens, and all the relevant information, there's a neat little plugin for Photoshop called PT Lens, which is specifically created to remove barrel distortion of various camera models and various lenses. So if you know all the information, I highly recommend you check that out. It's only like $5–10 with a free trial, and it does a really great job for camera specific information. Unfortunately, we don't have that sort of information for these images, so we had to eyeball it. Okay, so that'll do it for this one. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or post on the forums. Thank you.